Hey, what's going on, fellas? Doing a video for Mrs. P today. She has commissioned this 5-burner array, and this is a piece of equipment that I've built before for another farmer in California. This is a organic weed control device. It's got a lot of different uses. You can also use this for flame straightening and things like that on shipyards and stuff like that, but for the most part, today we're going to be looking at what it can do around the farm and how you light this thing.
Okay, Miss P, so here's the basic setup. This thing is going to be mounted to the side of your tractor, preferably on something with a little bit of spring to it. And it's got a clasp that it's going to now allow you to light this thing, remove the clasp, and then rotate it downward towards the ground. It's going to just take it and rotate it downwards like this to face towards the ground when you're ready. And basically what you would want to do is tune these valves according to what type of flame you wanted where. If you want them all the same, that's kind of how I have it set now. And I'm going to try and light this with all of these already set because I've already took the time to get it going. Each valve's got to be set a little bit differently because this manifold is so small. It has a lot of pressure drop in it, so that's the kind of the tricky part. Now, if you decide you don't like where everything is and you want to start all over, you basically start with this burner here on the end when you go to set it up, because this is the one furthest away from the fuel and you want to get all the air bubbles and stuff out right away. And then you would just light each burner, set it to where you want it, and then light the next burner accordingly. To light these, you need very low air in the beginning. Low air and high fuel is the best way to get it lit. We have a fuel pump in your case. The fuel pump is required so when you're driving over bumps, you don't experience a flame out. Gravity feed fuel likes to bounce and shake with you, so it can cause a flame out incident. And what you will do is hook this up to the 12-volt power supply, the auxiliary. If you have like a cigarette lighter auxiliary somewhere on the tractor you're running, I'm going to send you a connector for that. And you would essentially just flip this switch on to get the fuel going as soon as you're ready to light the burner. This is in the off position here, and that is on. Basically just got this hose set into a diesel fuel tank here. I'm using a 12-volt power supply to simulate the battery.
Okay, in this clip here, we're looking at how you light all of them at the same time. You basically just flip on the fuel pump, open the main fuel valve and the air very lightly, and you just hurry up and lick them all with the torch as fast as you can. Then you can kind of walk through each one and dial it in. And then once you got the flame set where you like them, you would simply remove that clevis pin and rotate the burners down towards the ground. Get on your tractor and you're ready to start burning up some ground for whatever reason you may need to scorch the earth. There's a lot of reasons that you would want to do this. Now, the more powerful the air compressor you have, the more power you're going to get out of this thing. We have about half as much air as we actually need on this thing right now. Now, typically I would do an experiment like this at nighttime so you guys could see the flames, but I don't have time. I am just so crunched for time these days. I had to get this thing in a box today. She is waiting on this thing, and I ain't got time to jack around with doing experiments when the conditions are the best. Here in a couple of minutes, you're about to see me light this thing in gale force winds. It's incredible. So it's definitely something you can light up in any condition. Right here, I've got the flame set at a little bit different of a settings just so you can see it. I don't necessarily recommend running it at this level. I would prefer a higher velocity flame. It's a little bit hotter. But as I said, we have about half as much air as we need. This is about 18 cubic foot per minute of air. So it's a substantial amount of air. I want to say we're at about 60 to 70 PSIs right now. But with a little bit more air, you can really burn the ground quick. This right here would do fine. I'm just letting you know that this burner has far more potential than this. I've got some videos of just one of these things running to kind of show what they're actually capable of. Unfortunately, the hard drive that video is on is broken, so I'll have to provide a link in the description for a better look at that burner. So I'm going to show you how to shut it down. You just turn off the pump. Always turn the pump off to shut this thing down. You don't want to do it any other way. Now this is me lighting this thing in gale force winds, just to kind of show you how doable this is in any real world condition, because let's face it, the wind doesn't always fit our schedule. There's a lot of things you just can't do in the wind on a job site, and we've done it all. So this is kind of a look at what's going on. You can see here in a second, this wind just gets going so crazy that I'm literally sailing at this point. I might as well just get on a boat or something here, because it is just blasting today. Literally sailing, and this thing doesn't care. It'll stay burning just fine. It's almost impossible to put these burners out. I've got video of me holding a squirrel cage fan on one of these things, and it won't blow out. That is the most amazing thing about the Godzilla burner design. There is something about it that makes it absolutely wind resistant to the core. Most burners couldn't run such a lazy flame in this kind of wind, but this one seems to be okay. However, as I said, I really wish I could give you guys a look at the high velocity mode. I didn't have the foresight to just fire up one burner and show you what they can all do. Like I said, I'm crunched for time these days, and Mrs. P, if you got any questions, you got my phone number, you can get a hold of me and get this thing figured out. I hope that answers any of the questions you might have. If I do recommend putting like maybe a secondary strut on this thing for reinforcement. I just wasn't sure what the tractor you're mounting this thing to looks like, so I wasn't able to get any feedback from you on that. So I think the bracket I've given you is going to be universal enough to allow you to attach this thing to anything. So at this point, I think that's pretty much the end of the video. There's a little bit of footage of me jacking around with this thing in the wind, but I just decided to go ahead and show this footage. I was just going to axe it because it was such terrible conditions, but then I realized you might want to see that this thing will actually work in pretty much any scenario. So I don't recommend running this thing in this kind of wind because you probably burn the place down. But if you had an area that you needed to treat and you felt fire hazard did not present itself, then I suppose you could run it. But this is diesel fuel I'm using in the test. You can run other fuels on this thing, propane. It'll burn just about anything you put in it. These burners can burn any fuel. But I think I'm done yapping at this point. I appreciate the business.